the deep recesses of one's mind, there is a voice, a guiding light through the darkness, a connection to the other side.
You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a poor little me.
A pathway to spiritual that echoes with enlightenment. The voice of spirit.
The voice of spirit.
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Your journey starts here and now. With your host and connection to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Wow, very, very warm welcome. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you happen to be in the world. As you all know, I'm a medium, although one of my favourite subjects is skeptics. Now, that may surprise some of you, but it's what I'm going to be talking about tonight, and some of the, highly, highly qualified scientists and some of the ridiculous statements they've come out with. For example, the Scientific American, the New York Times, New York Herald, the US Army, academics, including Professor of Mathematics and Astronomy, Simon Newcomb from Johns Hopkins University, and many, many other American scientists all ridiculed the Wright brothers when they claimed that they were going to make this test flight, build a plane, and they all said it was absolutely scientifically impossible for men to fly. We all know what's happened to that. So we're going to come out with a few facts like that. We're also going to be talking about, in speech marks, the amazing Randy and his $1 million challenge, which has finally been terminated. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit and a few other skeptic things. Psychops was set up to debunk and Randy debunk, metaphysical claims. So we're going to be talking about those kinds of things. So I hope you're going to find this interesting. I find it amazingly interesting for all kinds of reasons. And one of it is the complete arrogance of man in that we, of course, know everything about everything, and so we're really qualified to talk about what does and doesn't exist, even though we continually find sometimes new species even in England. And as we know, there are some parks in the United States, like Yellowstone Park, that is at least twice the size of England. But in England, we're finding new species of beetles, and we're finding new species in the Amazon, the bottom of the sea. We've even found water on Mars and different planets. So, we very arrogantly state what is the truth and won't accept anything else. And the premise of science is to test and keep redoing the test so that you can prove it. It's not just a one-off. And things have to be tested, and we have to do it in a very unbiased way. Scientists have to be open-minded. And, of course, people like Randy, who claim they use scientific methods, and others of that ilk don't follow scientific reasoning. And, in fact, because they're not open-minded and doing fair tests, they are completely unscientific. So we're going to be talking about these kinds of things tonight. I would like to enlighten you with a couple more. Skeptics historically have opposed every invention and discovery and have made complete fools of themselves. So we have Sir William Preece, that's spelled Preece, former chief engineer of Britain's post office, will be remembered for making one of the most idiotic comments in history about Edison's invention. As you know, Edison, the scientist, invented the light bulb. And Sir William stated that the parallel circuit, the lamp, was a completely idiotic idea. There is no need to remind you, we all have light bulbs in our houses. Then there was another gentleman, Professor Henry Morton, who knew Edison and stated immediately before Edison demonstrated the electric light globe, on behalf of science, he proudly announced, Edison's experiments are a fraud on the public. We have another leading scientist from the French Academy of Sciences who stated that hypnosis is a fraud, and stated after seeing a hypnotized subject with a 4-inch needle in the top of his arm, this subject has been paid for showing he's not in pain. Another one, actually, about Edison as well, another scientist from the French Academy of Sciences, after listening to a record made by Edison, and Edison invented lots of sound machines, different kinds of recorders, etc. And this gentleman from the Academy of Sciences stated, it is clearly a case of ventriloquism. John Logie Baird, the inventor of television, was attacked by closed-minded skeptics who stated it was absolute rubbish that television waves could produce a picture. So I just want you to sort of think about all these so-called facts and so-called scientists. It would be fair to say that what we think we know now will change in a few years' time. Quantum physics has expanded greatly, and everything we think we know is being turned on its head. However, quantum physics is going quite a long way to proving the paranormal, communication with spirit, etc. So quantum physics is, I suppose, a fairly new science, and it is one that was belittled by people like Randy as well, you know, not a proper science. Yeah, so, you know, what we think we know has changed incredibly already. The world is very, very different. If we go back roughly 140, 150 years, and on from that, this is where the first motor cars were produced, invented. And initially, when cars were produced, a man had to walk in front of it with a red flag to keep people out the way. They also thought that cars and steam trains, if we went over 30 miles an hour, it would be fatal. I mean, all kinds of crazy claims. And as you know, the land speed record, I think, is in excess of 600 miles per hour. Of course, we have rockets to the moon. We do 200 and 300 miles an hour and more in commercial airliners. So, the men of the day stand up and say, this is completely unheard of, cannot be true in any way, and is usually detrimental health-wise in some sense. So we're going to be talking about a few of those things. One of the other things as well is that skeptics in the last few years have become very suspiciously quiet. And the basis of that fact is that as science is discovering more and we are acknowledging that the supernatural exists, we have all kinds of proof of it, that they are very, very much on the back foot. Now, skeptic scientists started out with something called, it turned into an organisation called Psychops, and it was originally set up to prove that astronomy and the stars, etc., and how it affects us, Pisces, etc., was all a fake. And they tried for decades, and they gave up on that. They started to move towards other things they thought they could prove was not real, such as life after death. So that program ended. I did actually do a blog about that, and it was basically about Psychops has lost its 30 years war to prove anything. And one of the amusing things there as well, because they were targeting people from universities that they thought had more intelligence and would be more on their side, because people who are intelligent, they figured, would tend to be skeptical. And the amazing thing is that what it did, it actually brought the attention of this subject, mediums, etc., all paranormal activity, to the minds of those people. And of course, they started to look into them. So their aim to quash the paranormal, to keep it under wraps, to belittle it, you can't get much more of a failure than having the whole thing turned up on its head and actually increasing the knowledge and the investigation of the subject you're trying to put down and bringing that to a much wider audience. So there are quite a few amusing stories to tell about this kind of thing. So it's very interesting. Now, one of those things, of course, is remote viewing, which the government uses. And there's an article that was written, and it's a commentary by the US government, and it acknowledges that psychic power is real. Now, this was another blog that I did in, I think, 2014. So some of this is really not new. But they admit that this is real. And what they did was they awarded a psychic the Legion of Merit for psychic services. This award is the second highest award that the US government can make during peacetime. And it was given to a remote viewer called John McGonigal with the approval of US Congress for his brilliant psychic work. And the citation reads, while with his command, he used his talents and expertise in the execution of more than 200 missions, addressing over 150 essential elements of information. These EEI contain critical intelligence reported at the highest echelons of our military and government, including such national levels agencies as the Joint Chiefs of Staff, DIA, NSA, CIA, DEA, and the Secret Service, producing crucial and vital intelligence unavailable from any other source. Now, that's quite some citation, and to be given that medal is definitely an acknowledgement. And the funny thing is, of course, skeptics have not kind of derided that. They've not really attacked it. Because it's a huge endorsement. And around that time, again, this was around 2013, 2014, the United States government was investing around $60 million a year in this research. Many other governments across the world do it, including the UK, China, of course, Russia, of course. And I was listening to a Leslie Flint recording. Now, as you well know, I'm a very great fan of Leslie Flint, and he's a direct voice medium, and the voices appear in the air, and you have intelligent conversations with them. They express all kinds of views. And one of these, which was a well-known professor here. I think it was No, I'm not going to guess. I can't remember the gentleman's name, highly regarded in these circles. And he was heaping praise at that time, when that was recorded, about how far the Russians had gone ahead and the amazing advancements they'd made in remote viewing and on all levels of what we would call the paranormal. So the Russians are greatly into this. The Chinese are greatly into this. So, we can go back many, many decades when all governments are interested in UFOs, they're interested in the supernatural and the paranormal, and they actively participate. So this would make you wonder just exactly where skeptics like Randy are coming from. It's a very strange thing. The other thing which really takes the shine off what Randy and lots of skeptics do, and we must remember skeptics are a very, very, very small minority of the population, as I said before, getting quieter, being much more subdued. But it would make you wonder what their intention is to keep this subject and this knowledge away from people. And the basic answer to that is control. Strangely enough, although the governments of the world invest together hundreds of billions researching this, they also give money and spend money with skeptics to advance that. Now, the reason for that is power, it's control. They don't want us thinking, what they might think are irrational thoughts. They try as a world control to dumb down the population. They do not want us thinking. So on the one hand, they have hundreds of billions of dollars worldwide to investigate this subject, and they are also funding scientists, universities, historians, skeptics all over the world to try and keep this very quiet. So if ever you're thinking of opposites, then that certainly is one to conjure with. And I say conjure in a light mood because that's what James Randi was. He was a musician, and that's where he got the title The Amazing Randi. Now, his $1 million challenge for proof of psychic phenomena has been terminated. The James Randi Foundation page indicates it's no longer accepting applications from the general public. Celebrity psychics will still be welcome with a TV crew. The foundation is going to be converted. Again, money. And a review of the protocols will be done next year. Now, it's possible that this may be reinstated. Personally, I do think that's a bluff. They have been very quiet, more so over the last few years. And, I don't think that this is something that's going to be revived. And it says here, even if the James Randi Prize is permanently terminated, we don't need to be psychic to understand that pseudo-skeptics will continue to use it as a club to beat up believers for the foreseeable future. This is from their site. Over the years, we have spent a great deal of time dealing with claims ranging from yet another dowsing claim to some very eccentric and untestable claims. The overwhelming majority refuse to fill out the application or even state a claim that can be tested. Some of them show up in person and demand to be tested while they wait. We can no longer justify the resources to interact with these people. Effective immediately, this will be terminated. Now, James Randi Foundation will no longer accept applications directly from people claiming to have paranormal power. Previously available application forms shall not be used, and this will be rejected without any review of the contents. Now, I do know that one of the things that the foundation does is to try and upset and unbalance the process, change the rules, and I've got somewhere some of the qualifications that they use to throw applicants off. Now, a friend of mine, a very good medium, was contacted by the foundation to say for them to appear. And as usual, they said, well, it's going to happen here, and this is where we're going, and this is what we're going to do. And they said, fine. And they then rang up and said, we're moving location. That's fine. They then contacted them again and said, right, well, we're changing the test. That's fine. And this went on for a fair while. And because it didn't throw the medium whatsoever, they eventually terminated the test. Now, there are many mediums where they've terminated the test. And the reason is, of course, is because in trying to wrong foot and put the medium at a disadvantage, when they find that there is a genuine medium and when they find that they can't unbalance them, it is not going in their favour. So it is not surprising that, unfortunately, some people without good gifts have taken up the challenge. And to be honest with you, some of them have been frauds, etc. Then unfortunately, they've been disproved. The problem is that Randy has the very last say. They don't do things scientifically. They change the rules. They can change the rules midway. And I'm going to get part of the contract. I did copy it somewhere, so I'll read that for you. As I was saying, sorry, I've just lost my place there a little bit. There are very many ways of putting off those that perhaps don't have good, gifts to the capacity that they should have, and those that they did take on, they knew they could outwit one way or another. So it's totally against you. Now, after the break, we're going to be talking about Victor Zamet's counter challenge of $1 million for them to prove that it does not exist. So we're going to talk about that. We'll be straight back after the
break. This is the voice of spirit, your connection to the other side.
To understand something spiritually, you must experience it. And in order to experience it, you have to experience it in your imagination.
Explore with us by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Everything that now exists was once imagined. Therefore, everything that is going to exist must first be imagined.
Back with your guide to spirit, Leo Bonomo. After these brief words from our sponsors.
Toxins are everywhere, from the air we breathe to the food we eat and the water we drink. In a world where 80,000 known toxins and heavy metals threaten our very existence, how are you going to protect yourself and your loved ones? Introducing Pure Body Extra Strength, the world's first colloidal zeolite that helps trap and remove toxins as well as heavy metals from your body that are messing with your memory, clarity, sleep, and focus. Don't just take our word for it or the testimonials from our thousands of happy customers. Check out the hundreds of articles and case studies on the National Institute of Health website proving zeolite's powerful ability to remove toxins. For a limited time, listeners to KCOR will receive 10% off their first order. To get started, go to trypurebody.com and enter promo code RADIO10. Again, that's trypurebody.com. Toxic junk is all around us, but now you can take back control of your health and protect yourself by detoxing with Pure Body Extra Strength. You'll be on your way to sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and feeling more energetic. Go to trypurebody.com right now and get started today.
You love them enough to do anything for them.
Mom, I need to be wiped.
Coming!
Including checking NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Monday nights are about to become hauntingly good as Reverend Sean Whittington possesses the airwaves with Vegas Supernatural. Tune in every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for Vegas Supernatural, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. There's a war raging between good and evil. The question is, which side are you fighting on? Tune in Monday nights as Reverend Sean Whittington sets the new standard for paranormal radio with some of the most influential personalities in the world today. Vegas Supernatural, hosted by Reverend Sean Whittington, every Monday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The one show even the devil doesn't want you to hear.
The all-new KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Great. Make a note of it.
It's great!
We interrupt this program to annoy you and make things generally irritating.
At the end of the day, we turn the lights down in the KCOR studio.
Oh, sweet.
And crank up the hottest club songs from around the world.
This is the future.
The Grind, mixed by Tina Marie, your Vegas vixen of the high desert.
What about the body? What kind of body?
Good body. Nice body.
Every night from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Pacific. The best 3 hours of commercial-free music.
New music first.
It's time to stand up and dance your ass off. The Grind, nightly and exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Come on, it's kind of hot.
Welcome back to the Voice of Spirit, your connection to the other side.
There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it.
Connect with us on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us live in our chat room at KCORradio.com. To get a free reading during the show, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers, use Skype name KCOR Radio. And now, inspirational clairvoyant medium, psychic, and your connection to the spirit, the host of the Voice of Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, welcome back. If you do want to make a donation to the show, and we do get some, and it's very, very much appreciated, you can go to KCOR Radio and you can find the site on there and click the button to donate, and it's very gratefully received. You may also be interested in a couple of my books. One is called Summerland, which you can find on Amazon, and there's also a Book of Thoughts, which is also on Amazon, and I'm working on my third book about Leslie Flint, so do keep an eye out open for that. It's probably going to be released in towards the end of the year. but it's taken a long time to get that going. So if you do want to call in, it's 702-425-9230 if you have any questions, or you just want to enter the debate about skeptics and psychics, mediums, this work, the paranormal. You may want a reading. So we're just going to follow the usual format of the show there. Okay, so what I was going to talk about was Victor Zamet's counter challenge and offering 100, this would be Australian dollars. Victor lives in Australia. And he was offering a £1 million counter offer for psychics to disprove that there is any afterlife whatsoever. And it's interesting that a lot of the attention is drawn to Randy's £1 million challenge, and not so much to Victor's counter challenge. But Victor's counter challenge is still going, and anyone that's wanting to prove scientifically that there is no afterlife and no connection and no proof whatsoever, and that is a straight test. There are no tricks. There is no change in tactics. It is a straight test, and you can bring your evidence if you can ever find it, and go for that £1 million counter offer. Of course, James Randi is correct. There are frauds and charlatans, and in fact, Randi and some of the people that he has proposed as debunkers have also been called out, and there's some quite amusing evidence of that if you want to look on YouTube, and so this thing swings both ways. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, if there are hundreds of billions of dollars being spent by various countries in the world, and the US government comes out and states categorically that someone, Joe McMonigal, I do apologise for that. It's M_C MONEAGLE, again with the approval of Congress. If there is that much backing that the gifts that some people have are completely real, then that is certainly something that you should look at. Okay, so let me just have a quick look. There was a book which came out some years ago, and I'm taking this from some of my old blog sites. Unfortunately, I lost my site through a very careless host, and lost part of my site going back to blogs going back to 2008. And I've recently been able to find them, so I'm going to link them up with my new site. But on one of those blogs, there was a brilliant book, which I highly recommend, by Chris Carter, called Science and Psychic Phenomena, The Fall of the House of Sceptics. The site link is still there. So if you are interested in buying that book, then obviously you can go to Amazon. And again, it's called Science and Psychic Phenomena, The Fall of the House of Sceptics. You'll find that on there. But you can also go to Science and Psychic Phenomena, that's all one word, scienceandpsychicphenomena.com. And that is a real fantastic site. And Chris Carter really breaks it all down, and he outlines the origins of this passionate debate, and going from religious views against psychic abilities and why they cannot accept it. It's a wonderful book. Again, it's something that I highly recommend. It's on YouTube as well, and if you want to go to YouTube, you can either put in that title, or you can go to www.youtube.com/watch question mark V equals E4 minus, sorry, I was reading it as an underscore, Y89, Y, small y, 89 RE, I've made a mess of that. Watch, question mark, small v equals E, capital E, 4, dash, small y, 89 R, capital E, capital N, small, dash O, small. But if you just have a look for that, then I'm sure you'll find that. So there's an awful lot there that's given in that book. It does make wonderful, wonderful reading. Okay, now let me just see. So part of the challenge of Randy, it isn't a scientific test. And what they do is, the main purpose of this is to cause mockery and to really denigrate what great work some mediums do. Mediums are also connected to the police. They help solve cases, and there have been some wonderful cases that have been solved. There are lots of programs in America. I know there are programs in Australia, New Zealand. They're also shown here. One of them is called Sensing Murder, and a good friend of mine, Susan Nicholson, was on the show for 12 years. And they were basically looking at cold cases, disappearances, murders, that kind of thing. And I say that run for a long time. Susan was on there for 12 years, but it's still running this program, and they are getting results. So it's something that, again, you know, it's very difficult, I think, for skeptics to look at these things and come up with reasons why they have apparently broken the norm and you know, how they can say that this is not working well. I do apologise. I am feeling slightly off key here. Now, let's go back to let's just go back to in 1976, the convention of the American Humanist Association held in Buffalo, New York, from 30th of April to the 2nd of May. And its two principal people, Professors Marcello Truzzi, who actually left Psychops at the end because they wasn't following. He felt that what they were more concerned about was debunking at any cost, and he didn't feel this is fair. So he, as an original founder of Psychops, actually stepped back. So let me okay. The Humanist Association and the journal The Humanist had published a strongly worded manifesto's objections to astrology in 1974. And that was signed by 186 scientists, including an impressive total of 18 Nobel laureates, and copies of the document were sent to every newspaper, magazine in the US and Canada. And Kurtz, the other gentleman, clearly knew and approved of Truzzi's fledgling journal and asked him to become a co-chairman of Psychop. And this was initially good, and Psychop was up and running in all different directions, especially towards the media, which generally gave it very favourable coverage. Now, that's when things started to go badly wrong. So it soon became very evident that Truzzi and Kurtz did not see eye to eye on ways of combating the rising tide of occultism. As Truzzi put it later, the problem with Psychop is that it has made debunking more important than impartial inquiry. And it seemed clear from the start that whilst Truzzi was all in favour of impartial inquiry, Kurtz wasn't. So there was already signs there that Psychop was becoming what Robert Anton Wilson called the New Inquisition, and there is a book of that name printed in 1986. There were genuine skeptics like the astronomer Carl Sagan, who refused to sign the Anti-Astrology Manifesto on the grounds that statements contradicting borderline focused pseudoscience that appear to have an authoritarian tone can do more harm than good. Psychops itself had been going for about 30 years and had completely lost that argument. And it quite cynically actually turned itself into CSI, mimicking the letters of obviously those great scientists that do work for the police and are properly scientific. So it's also mimicked some of these to give, again, a more authoritarian feel to it, more of an authority, and underlining the fact, or trying to underline the fact, that it is a serious science when in fact it isn't. The members of the Psychical Research, the SPR, stated the aim of which was on its founding nearly 100 years before Psychops, was to examine without prejudice or prepossession and in the scientific spirit those faculties of man, real or supposed, which appear to be inexplicably or generally recognised hypnosis, and that's what we would now call the paranormal. And the obvious difference between these is in the stated aims which have been put into practice. While SPI investigates phenomena such as telepathy, psychokinesis and precognition, Psychops investigates claims that such phenomena existing and strongly implying that it cannot and it doesn't. So again, it's just a complete denial of that. There were numerous defections from Psychops. One of the first was New Zealander Richard Carman, spelled Kamman, co-author of David Marks' The Psychology of the Psychic, in which they discuss the persistence of false beliefs, noting that once formed, the belief in question biases the observer to notice new information that confirms the belief and to discount evidence to the contrary. And they say, talking about this as a self-perpetuating mechanism, belief reinforcement and resistance to criticism. And again, it's something, with the BBC here, and I think certainly in other parts of the world, whenever there is a paranormal program, there has to be balance, and that I would certainly agree with. I think there needs to be balance in all things. But when the BBC talks about balance, they have to take on these skeptics, or they do take on these skeptics, and they get debunkers on the program rather than serious scientific arguments. And it's these scientific arguments which they are biased when they're set up, but they also don't follow scientific restraints or boundaries or guidelines, because what happens is that the goalposts are moved. So in a subjective sense, what they do is that they take something that may work, and they get a few tests that seem to go against them, and what they do is they then start to pick apart and use other pseudoscience techniques to take apart what has been shown. One of the other things that's very clearly shown is that if you have a bunch of skeptics and you're trying to give information to them, you're trying to give information from spirit or whatever, they will be able to, in most cases, block that communication. Now, just from their attitude, from bad thoughts as well. So it doesn't create what you might call a sterile environment for these things to work. So there is an awful lot of bias against them, and in a strange way, you may think that because they're sending out these vibrations of it can't work, they are trying to block the medium, they're actually using some of the energies that mediums use in a positive way and use them in a negative way against the medium. So, you know, there is a strange, slight twist of fate there, where some of these energies and some of these techniques that mediums and psychics use, and connecting to spirit and connecting to that energy, are actually used against them. So it's interesting from that point of view. Okay, now a sociologist called Harry Collins goes further than what I have there, and he calls Psychops a scientific vigilante organisation, and insisting that science can and must police itself without the help of self-appointed outsiders. And this is something else, you know, Psychops and CSI as it is now, should not be mistaken for scientific research organisations. Psychops lobbies tirelessly, that obviously takes money, and notably in academic and media circles against what it sees as a threat to civilization. One of the interesting things that I find is that skeptics feel very comfortable in attacking spiritualism and spiritual things, and psychic mediumship is obviously connected to spiritualism and the life after this. However, they would not use those arguments against, for example, Buddhists, the Catholic Church, other religions. So many people believe in life after death, whether it's through a religious view, whether it's through personal experiences, you know, whatever it might be. They don't attack those, but they do feel very free to attack frauds and mediums, psychics, and of course there are frauds and fraudulent mediums, which I'm very keen to disclose as well, and I have done in the past. So they attack on a very sort of small sector. They attack spiritualism, psychics, and mediumship, but they won't attack religions for the same kind of view. So it's a very one-sided thing. What I would like to see is other religions come up and tackle them, or you know, on the belief of an afterlife. I think that would be extremely interesting. Experiments have been done in the past with scientists from spirit, materializing hands, and fingerprints were taken from the materialized hand, and the gentleman that materialized was obviously a criminal, because what happened was they tested the fingerprint, the imprint that was made, and found out that it was actually a real person who has obviously passed away, so they could identify that person. There are lots and lots of evidence scientifically for this subject to be proved real. So it's interesting from the points of view that if you're asking for scientific proof, and there is much more of it around now, which is one of the reasons that people like Randy and other skeptics are becoming much more quiet. It is something really to be appreciative of, that we are moving forward, that there are lots of scientists, there are lots of doctors, surgeons that have come back from near-death experiences and having had their beliefs overturned, and understanding that this connection with spirit world and our existence afterwards is definitely real, and absolutely something to look forward to. One of my theories about skeptics is that they have a fear, and they have a fear that if they are not good people, or they have something which they are frightened of because of actions they have taken, or perhaps the way they feel they are, that would be a reason for not wanting to believe. To take an extreme view of that, the human mind is a wonderfully adaptive thing, and we can override different feelings and actions. And you saw this very painfully during the Second World War, where people in all wars really do things they wouldn't normally do, but there is a way that the human mind can justify most things. And I do feel that skeptics feel that if they deny that there is a link, then that is, it's not going to affect them. I never try to change people's minds at all, because I do believe that skeptics are here to live without this knowledge, without the comfort of this knowledge, and they have a perfect right to do so. So I never try and convert. But one of the things that I have a bit of a problem with is skeptics just trying to convince anyone in quite an aggressive way, that they're right, there is nothing else. I find it hard to believe that people would want to take away hope from people, that there is something there, that loved ones can communicate, that we all survive. It's one of the things that Spirit have really brought forward. That is the main aim of this contact, to prove that. So I think it's awful that people try and take away those connections and those aspirations and the comfort that brings. We're going to go into a break, and we will be back straight after this.
You've been listening to Leo Bonomo, the host of The Voice of Spirit, live every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, guests, and host of The Voice of Spirit, or to book a private reading, please visit leo-bonomo.com. That's leo-bonomo.com. Your connection to the other side is just a phone call away. The Voice of Spirit.
It is amazing, is it not?
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51. Wait, that doesn't exist. This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
In the deep recesses of one's mind, there is a voice, a guiding light through the darkness, a connection to the other side.
You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a poor little me.
A pathway to spiritual that echoes with enlightenment. The Voice of Spirit.
The Voice of Spirit.
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Your journey starts here and now. with your host and connection to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, very, very warm welcome back. Now, I've been talking about Sceptics and Psychops and some of these organisations and Randy and the $1 million test that has been withdrawn, and also about Victor Zamet's counteroffer, which is still going for anybody to absolutely disprove the paranormal in any way. I think I'm right in correcting in saying that it's never been accepted on any level. So I don't think there's even been a tentative acceptance to try and give any evidence that none of this exists. I want to go back to Psychops. And in May 2006, which was the 30th anniversary, so this is where the 30 years was, Is It Lost has come from, and it coincided almost to the day with another nasty shock to the skeptical system. A new poll commissioned by Reader's Digest at the time, in which more than 1,000 adults were questioned about their paranormal beliefs. And this revealed remarkably high levels of belief in such matters, such as knowing when somebody you can't see is staring at you. 68% of people thought that was correct and that was true. Knowing who is calling you before picking up the phone, 62%. And more than half, 52%, reported instances of premonition, often in dreams, and nearly a fifth, 19%, claimed to have seen a ghost. Worst of all for the skeptics was Psychops' own poll published in the Skeptical Inquirer, January-February of 2006 issue. And this focused on college students, 439 of them, because the authors explained, we assumed that higher education, as one of the few remaining bastions of critical thinking, would provide little room for pseudoscientific or paranormal beliefs. And to test this over-optimistic assumption, questions were similar to those of the 2001 Gallup poll, the wording of which, for some of them, was supposed to be was suggesting that Psychops didn't really understand what it was supposed to be investigating. So that's rather strange as well. For instance, students were asked if they believed in clairvoyance or the power of the mind to know the past and predict the future. Clairvoyant actually means seeing at a distance. It's also known as clear seeing. It's a French word, of course, and without the use of known senses. Predicting the future is usually known as prophecy or precognition. What's more, there was an even more carelessly worded question concerned with psychic or spiritual healing or the power of the human mind to heal the body. And again, these are entirely separate matters, the latter being indisputable, as any hypnotherapist or researcher who's carried out trials using a placebo has known for the last 200 years. Elsewhere, separate questions were asked regarding ESP and telepathy. The questioners evidently being unaware that telepathy is an instance of ESP, a term rarely used now by parapsychologists, and that one cannot control by definition or believe in one without believing in the other as well. So it's hard to see how Psychop came up with 28% belief level in ESP, but only 24% in telepathy. Anyway, the results clearly showed that there was still plenty of room for paranormal belief at higher education level. Belief levels for some questions were being almost exactly the same as they were in the Gallup poll, which in itself is quite interesting. What Psychop pollsters have found particularly unsettling was the fact that as the students' educational levels increased, so did their paranormal belief levels for all 14 subjects on which they were questioned. Dividing the students into 5 categories from freshmen to graduates, percentages of those that would be described as believers steadily rose from 23% to 26, 27, 31, and finally 34% of the graduates. In other words, an American college education increases paranormal belief levels by nearly 50%. how can this be? It could be that young people concerned were merely exercising their right to make up their own minds on topics that they might have studied or had personal experience of. Another one of Psychop's conspiracy theories, could that provide the answer? This was that it was all the fault of the media. It's quite strange because Psychops uses the media extensively, but of course, if this isn't going Psychops' way, it tends to attack the media. So they would begin to think that it was all the fault of the media. And according to SI editor Kendrick Fraser, media portrayal of the paranormal is often unchallenged, which contributes to the public's lack of skepticism. Yet if this is correct, it amounts to an admission or failure by Psychop in one of its top priority areas, that of challenging the media and seeking to influence it. Over the years, it has tirelessly lobbied it, demanding the right to reply and filing complaints with federal communications committees. There was a 17-page booklet manual for local, regional and national groups which are devoted to handling the media and public relations. And this is just one part of Psychops. And, it compares to just 3 for scientific investigation, which is, or you would expect to be, the very broadest part of the organisation. Psychops can hardly claim to have been ignored by the media. It's found in the Anti-Astrology Manifesto that preceded it, and its annual conferences have attracted nationwide publicity, most of it favourable to them, including major features, as in high-profile outlets, New York Times, Time magazines, Psychops' his own house journal, The Skeptical Inquirer, easily outsells all the leading parapsychology journals combined. Another conspiracy theory put forward by them in the SI poll report was that there was something wrong with either higher education system itself. Sorry, it's making me laugh. The word higher in higher education may soon need a new definition. It complains, citing that with typical sarcasm, various university departments where parapsychology and related topics were studied. And this included the Temple University's Center for Frontier Science, Universities of Virginia's Division of Personal Studies, and the new chair at Lund in Sweden in parapsychology and hypnology, but not, as Psychop seems to think, clairvoyance. So, there's an awful... there's great disparity there between Psychops wanting to get its own way, whichever way the swing swings, and what it sees as or tries to give as completely unbiased opinions and scientific reasons as to why this what we do and what we understand and what the great mass of the world understands is that there is something after this life. It cannot really claim to be a scientific organisation. There were many in 1976 who warmly welcomed the idea of submitting astrology and other areas on or beyond the fringes of science to strict scrutiny. And the proper way that science does this is by replication, repeating exactly what the claimant did. And if it comes up with the same result and continues to do so, as in this instance, in numerous replications of Gansfeld telepathy and clairvoyance experiments, then the probability that the claim is genuine or at least deserves further study steadily becomes stronger. Psychops has consistently failed to separate the possible and the probable from the improbable and the ridiculous, and it's adopted a kind of combine harvester approach to the field of anomalies with the aim of chewing up the whole lot. If you get a so-called scientific organisation that changes the rules as and when it wants, completely goes against the flow of the way scientific investigation should be carried out, and people are able to see that something is dreadfully wrong in what's being given, because of course it does go against their own beliefs, whether that's more religiously based or spiritually based, and of course against people's own experiences. I think if you talk to people, then most people would have had experiences which they would understand may not be normal or explainable in the normal sense. For instance, a friend that you may not have spoken to for many years calls, and as the phone rings, you know it's that friend. We all have these kind of experiences. We've all had them. We've all had these knowings that things are going to happen. And it's very different in a scientific sense, or try to be scientific, saying that cannot possibly happen. You can rationalize that, which is what psychops and skeptics try and do. They try and find a way round it. But if you have had that experience, if you have been given information from a medium or a psychic that you know can only have come from the person that has passed away, how do you rationalize that? You're being told it can't happen, yet you've had the experience yourself. One of the great things that I do like, which is refused by particular organisations, is for mediums and psychics to give predictions, because there is no way that you can cold read a prediction. So I'm very much in favour of that, and that's something that I've said many, many times. And so I think if we begin to band these things together, and with people's overwhelming acceptance that things have happened that they can't explain, twin experiences, I mean, that is a subject that's quite widely covered. It's one of those things that is accepted. I think if you talk to most people and say, have you heard about twin experiences? Are you a twin? Have you heard these things that go on? People will accept that those things can happen. We do have a gut feeling or sixth sense, and that is psychism in a very low level, but it is something that tells us we shouldn't proceed, whether it's walking along a particular road or taking a particular direction on another level. We know of countless instances where, for example, a horse will not go past a certain point. It will want to hold back. Dogs, man's best friend as well, have this ability. If you want to look at tsunamis and that kind of thing, and just watch the way that animals react before, sometimes many hours, sometimes days before, they will begin to clear an area. You ask a scientist, you monitor for earthquakes. There doesn't seem to be any explanation as to why animals are pulling back, but they use that sense as well, to protect themselves, to clear an area. And it is something that we notice happening. You can look at films just prior to the tsunami in Asia that affected Thailand and that area of the world, and you can see videos of birds and animals making their way away from beaches. Of course, the earthquake hadn't happened then, so there is a sense there, and we are still quite animalistic in our makeup. we're quite backwards in many senses, but we also have this gut instinct. It's happened to so many people. If we look back in history, rulers, even, if we're looking at the Second World War, and certainly thousands of years back, they had seers, viziers, they had prophets. Of course, that's in the Bible as well. So going back 2,000 years on that particular point, we have acknowledged and absorbed that certain people have particular gifts. True mediums and true mediums of quality are quite rare, I do believe. But that doesn't mean we can't be trained. I think everybody is psychic to a particular level. Everybody can have that level advanced or honed. Whether it will get to the kind of accuracy and finesse that we would all wish is debatable. Some people just don't have the mechanics of it, if you like. But we're all capable. We all have that instinct, that gut instinct, sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, and we can all have that honed. So training in that respect is a good thing. And I think that if the rest of the world began to understand that this is something in a positive way that we should be teaching our children and encouraging our children, then this is something that we can all encourage. And because there are, around 8 billion of us, probably more now, in this world, we are advancing. This is an effect from 2012, but we are advancing. And we are becoming slightly more refined. And I think if we can teach our children from a fairly young age that those invisible friends, it's okay, it's fine, and we can teach ourselves that whilst there are things there that may not be explained, we have to understand that it is something that we need to be wary of, we need protection from, and to bring this knowledge to the fore. It would greatly advance humankind to accept that we are much more than what we apparently see. One of the things that scientists do agree on is that we use, if we are lucky, 10% of our brain power. I think most of us use much less. Leonardo da Vinci, critically acclaimed as one of the world's greatest geniuses, they estimated, who knows how, they estimated that he used around 9 or 10% of his mind. So most of us are much lower than that. But even if we take that figure, there's 90% of the brain that we do not know really how it works, what its real function is. And those are things that we could do. There were experiments many years ago in schools where the Lyceum was set up, and it was a spiritual body, interested in mediumship, interested in spiritualism, and they began running their own schools, including maths, science, etc. And they started to become quite successful. But again, there was an attempt to stop that. There was another attempt, I think, in the mid-60s of bringing in meditation time for people at school, and they trialled this at quite a violent and unruly school, and they found out that it had a magnificent effect of calming all the children down. So there are many ways in which this can go, and many ways in which this would be beneficial for us as a population throughout the world. Now, obviously, there's opposition to that. There are always nations which are warlike. There are always people which always want more and to be at the top of the pile and put everybody else down. But we're finding generally as a first world, apparently, population, that we have a voice, and we're certainly finding out in England at this time, because lots of people were voted out that were just seen as problem makers, and this was both the Conservatives, which lost 1,334 seats in local elections, Labour, which lost, I think, about 800 seats. Lots of seats changed places, and we have begun to understand that of the 600 members of Parliament or so, and the 66 million people in this country, we've actually understood that we have a voice and that we can make those changes. And it's a very small step from that to us understanding that we need to put people into positions, people that we can truly trust, not the elite that are just lining their own pockets. So, there's a change within the world of this happening, and this can help us to really go forward. We're having a sense of ourselves now, and this is happening in France and even Germany and different places, so I do think that we can make major world changes. I think the EU is doomed from that point of view. Lots of people want to pull out, and there's even been rumours that Germany is thinking that this is just no good as well. So we can make great changes, and I think if we force these changes into becoming more emotionally stable, meditation in life and brought up with that, and the acceptance of the real world, we can go really, really far. So we're going to come back for the last segment in a minute, and we'll speak to you soon.
This is the voice of spirit, your connection to the other side.
To understand something spiritually, you must experience it. And in order to experience it, you have to experience it in your imagination.
Explore with us by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Everything that now exists was once imagined. Therefore, everything that is going to exist must first be imagined.
Back with your guide to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Leo Bonomo.
After these brief words from our sponsors.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about, At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
You are listening to the all-new KCOR, The Core. KCOR broadcasting from Las Vegas, Nevada to the entire universe.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is your captain. I'd like to welcome you on Jackpot Airlines Flight 1610, service to Lost Wages.
They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, apparently, they need a reality check done Vegas style.
Vegas, 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 Vegas.
Tune in Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, for Reality Check, hosted by Jessica Johns, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Biggest star in the world, bigger than Britney and Christina put together.
If it's happening on the Vegas Strip, you'll know about it here first.
You are a dirty little fun haver.
Join Jessica Johns as she explores and goes behind the scenes of what's hot and what's not. From the best entertainment Vegas has to offer to national celebrity gossip.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Jessica has her finger on the heartbeat of the city, and she's waiting to share it with you. Reality Check, hosted by Jessica Johns. Wednesday, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern. She does Vegas right.
Yeah, baby!
If you love them enough to sit through their favorite boy band with them, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Voice of Spirit, your connection to the other side.
There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it.
Connect with us on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us live in our chat room at KCORradio.com. To get a free reading during the show, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers, use Skype name KCOR Radio. And now, inspirational clairvoyant medium, psychic, and your connection to the spirit, the host of the Voice of Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, very, very warm welcome back. Do look us up on Skype, on Facebook, and Twitter. Get in contact. It'd be nice to see some action in the chat room as well. Do sound off. Do let us know what you think. Do call in if that's your thing. I know that lots of people listen to this in the archive, so the live thing is slightly less of a consideration for most people. But do let us know. Also, if you do want to make a donation, once again, then just go to kcorradio.com and find the show and do help us. I suppose the summary, really, of the show tonight is that skeptics are becoming much more quieter. There is less aggravation. Yes, of course, people are still being attacked and trolled, etc. As unfortunately in daily life it happens now, which is a wicked thing, really. But they're becoming much quieter. You've got proper scientists, quantum physics, lots of tests being done, lots and lots of proof being given in various ways. One of the things I haven't touched on, which is a favourite subject of mine really, is Leslie Flint recordings. And some of those recordings, for example, oh God, I can see his face. I can see his face. I can't think of his name. Winston Churchill. Bless you. People that have been recorded and are known in that sense in the modern world. Their voices can be scanned, and we can see that it really is that person. There is so much evidence here. So I think the summary is that, skeptics are becoming much quieter. Supernatural things are getting a lot more prominent. People are expecting it. People are talking more now, so they're understanding that you don't necessarily have to feel silly about talking about these things. So it's becoming much more widespread. But as far as quantum physics and the science thing is concerned, there's much more evidence there, and it's so important that these things move forward so we can talk about them more freely. We've got something from Sarah and Skype. So the US government had a division that dealt with remote viewing, and some say it's still active. If the US government was interested in this phenomenon, why do skeptics push it off as fake and hoax? One of the things is, Sarah, is that skeptics accuse us of, ripping people off, making loads of money, etc. And that's one of their things is that it's fraud. You're making money, essentially, as a fraud. These debunkers, they cannot prove that what we do doesn't exist. Absolutely can't, and the evidence is very strong for it. But of course, people like Randy get paid hundreds of thousands of pounds for trying to debunk what's there. So I did think I'd kind of addressed this before, but the US government has a big interest in keeping these things quiet. There are lots of black ops that the US government keeps quiet. The leading country in the world as far as remote viewing is concerned would either be Russia or China. So again, it's all secret operations. It's things they don't generally want to tell the world about because they feel they have an advantage. The government division, the US government division, is still very, very active in this, as is the British government, Russia, China. There are lots of countries that are very aware of this. They are using, if we can use the word technology, they are using this technology. They are using the senses. I had read before about certain types of psychics, extremely powerful, that can and apparently have killed at a distance. That's been investigated. To my mind, it's, in one sense, it's incredible. And in another sense, it's just unbelievable. But it's incredible that the human mind can take something so wonderful, a spirit connection, and with the love and the healing, and weaponize it. But we seem to be weaponizing everything nowadays. Facebook has become weaponized. The web has become weaponized. It's all kinds of things like that. So you have the government interested, if we talk just about US government, we have the US government interested in gaining the upper hand on this, but not wanting people generally to become very aware because they would pick up what the government's doing, object to it. So it's in the government's interest to, as it will, weaponize this activity and these gifts, and it's also in the government's interest to keep the fakes going, denial of UFOs, etc., because it wants to hold that power. So I know that it seems like a contradiction, Sarah, but there is sensible argument for both sides of that, and one of the things that there are scientists in universities that are teaching, that are paid to be skeptical, to prove that this is rubbish, and unfortunately a lot of our scientists talk that way. So we don't learn about people like crooks. We don't learn about huge amounts of scientific work that's been done, certainly in the UK, but it applies in most countries of the world. We're not really aware of our real history because so much of it has been wiped out. But you can go online, you can find genuine sites. There are sites, of course, that are set up as Sceptics, but hidden very well, which kind of give you bits of truth that don't quite make sense. So you'd read it and think, this is rubbish, it's not adding up. The Sceptics must be right. WikiLeaks, for an example, not WikiLeaks, Wikipedia, for example, is run by Sceptics. As you probably know, you can edit Wikipedia, you can add knowledge to it. It is highly, highly censored. And Sceptics have a great deal of influence with that, so they will change accounts. They will put their own things forward. They will open up what are supposed to be proper spiritual sites and just give rubbish, and then of course refer to it from somewhere else saying, have you read this? It's complete rubbish. So there is still a very active ingredient both in the US government to keep this new weaponized section going and to infiltrate and to go into in as much depth as they can. But there's also an interest in the US government basically dumbing down the population. So it is two halves of the same thing. Doesn't just happen in the US government, it happens everywhere, because once people get this knowledge, then it is scary for the government. People will start to think, as my producer said, we have these communications, we have phones, and it helps to dumb us down. And then we have social media, which actually makes us antisocial. We're there texting, we're looking, and we're not talking to each other. And it's one of the reasons that we're not communicating and we're not seeing what's real in a very real sense, is because we're concentrating on what the media's given us, what Facebook is giving us, what the government is giving us. The dumber we are, the happier the governments are. And this is all governments in the world. It happens here. I did read somewhere that in the UK, we are losing around 300, or there are being created around 300 laws per year that are taking away our rights, and that's been going on for decades. Most of it's done in government. There's a white paper produced, there's a motion, it's voted on, it's done. We don't hear about it. We do not hear about it, and that's happening in every country in the world. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight as to why the US government had a division that's doing that. If you want to look up. If any of you want to look up, you can look up and see this site. So if you'll type in Psychic Awarded Legion of Merit or something similar to that, then you can find that. I haven't actually tried to find that just now. In fact, if I won't do that because it takes up a broad band width. But if you do that, or do Google Joe McGonigal US psychic or government psychic or whatever, you'll be able to find this information out. So that in a sense isn't hidden, but you have to know it to be there to kind of look for it. And of course, you won't find this information. You won't find, in that sense, great scientific leaps forward on a spiritual sense in WikiLeaks. You need to look elsewhere for it, and there are plenty of genuine places and genuine scientists that will look for that. So hopefully that's given you an answer there, Sarah. If you do have another question, then please be quick, because we've probably got around 7 or 8 minutes before the show closes. But thank you very much for that answer. I hope that's answered your question there. Yeah, so moving on from that, if we can move forward, get people to understand that the other 90% of our brain is used for something, and that we have these gifts, then we can make a better world. And that encompasses everything, not just greater love to all humanity, not just hopefully a lessening of wars, but also bringing peoples together. I know that many talented people are influenced from spirit, and I certainly feel that John Lennon was one of them. And that wonderful song that he wrote, Imagine, that there are no countries. I don't know whether that's prophetic. I don't know whether he had a predictive dream. I certainly feel that it's something that was influenced by a spirit. And perhaps that day is not too far away where we don't see boundaries. It doesn't mean that people can move absolutely freely, but we will get to a point in the world where certain countries like Africa are becoming unlivable. There are too many of us here, far too many. It will reach a point of overbalance, and nature will take care of its own. But some places in Africa, they're completely unlivable. Those people will tend to want to move to other countries. It's a problem that we have. Having said that, what a wonderful world it could be if there were no real boundaries in that sense. We wouldn't need to spend, hundreds and hundreds of billions in the US alone on armaments, on warfare. Think what we could do with that money to make everybody benefit. What a change that would be. Whether that can be done in this place we call Earth, I really don't know. I know it's a place of testing. I know that there are limits to that. But the possibility of the whole world being together and not judging by colour, not judging by nationality, not judging by prejudice, what a fantastic place it could be if that could happen. And I know it would be wonderful to be doing that, and it's something I suppose to aspire for, but certainly something that we could live for and push forward, because even if we only get 30% of the way there, such incredible changes could be made to this world. So spiritualism, awareness of other worlds in a spiritual sense, in a spirit sense, but other worlds from different races and different forms. Awareness of that can only bring us more happiness, I think, in the long run. When we can discover the beauty of other worlds properly, where we can discover the beauty of this world, because we're losing so much of it. I think it's not too strong a point to say that if we continue in the vein we are for another 50 years or so, then this will become a world of extinction, as Mars did, as Venus did, as other planets have. I don't think that we're the only ones here and there's a lot of evidence for that. So if we do believe we're the only ones here, this is a very precious element. If it's the only one in existence, we need to sustain it, not destroy it, and we can make beautiful changes. The population needs to be reduced. It can't keep growing at this rate. And there will be natural things that the Earth will take care of, as she always does. But if it can control populations, then we can get into a place where everyone has food. We can feed the world already if we stop creating harm, if we stop negative things, if we stop armaments and wars and just that greed that drives the human ego. It would be a much better place very quickly. I think a lot of people that are very spiritual and have hope for this world would say, well, if I had a wish, I would end all wars. So many people have said that. It would be a wonderful thing to aspire to. As we know, it's an economy-driven world. It's a world that needs replenishing. The whole economy is built on making something, run it into the ground, replace it. We need to find a different way of working because we can make cars that will last 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. We can make washing machines, etc., that will last. And in doing that, we don't use up so many of the world's reserves, and we can make everybody equal as it's supposed to be, rather than just a tiny percentage of the elite controlling anything and everything that we do. That's the power behind the spiritual awareness. That's the reason why skeptics have tried to say none of that exists. It's dumb to think of it. It's not dumb to think of it. It's dumb to think that we have control. We are gaining more control, but it's dumb to think that we have politicians in our pockets, that we expect them to do the best for us. So that is quite naive. Those are things that need to change. And that's why skepticism, again, it's dying off. It's not working. People are understanding that. Governments are understanding that. Science is certainly understanding that. And it's a dangerous way of thinking because it opens up the mind. It opens us up spiritually, physically and mentally to all kinds of possibilities. That's where the danger is. That's why, media, governments, scientists, skeptics, the whole system for them is under threat if we have this awareness. And that's why it's so important to spirit, for us to have that awareness and for us to acknowledge the true life that's there, but also the life that we can create here. So it's a very important thing. It's not just about giving hope. It's not just about, we're here 10 score years, 4 score years and 10, and then, that's it. That isn't the real purpose of spirit communication. The real purpose is to make this awareness here, to make us understand that things are actually very, very different from what is generally perceived, and that we have control and that we can make real changes and take away so much of the misery that this world is created, that's created in it. That it's man that does this. Animals feed themselves. There is natural selection in that. We are the only species that has damaged perhaps forever this planet that we live on. So we have a great responsibility here, to make these things right. And it's only awareness that will make that happen. We are becoming aware of the pollutants we put in the world. Spirit want us to be aware so that we can make this a better place and take away some of the suffering. I really hope that you've you've enjoyed certainly the second half. I do apologise. I can't work very well when I'm trying to read off bits and pieces that I've prepared, and I am very aware of that, and I do apologise for that. But most of the time, I'm being influenced by spirit, and then it flows. But it's when I need to prepare something and read it that it doesn't flow so well. So my sincere apologies for any of that. It is something I'm working on, but I can't really ground myself and work very well. Take the great love of spirit, take the great love of your relatives, take the peace and hope that spirit offers, take the healing that it offers, and take the awareness. And if you can just become a little more aware each day or each year, it will be of such great benefit for you. So take their great, great love and mine, lots and lots of light, and we'll speak to you next week, and we shall have a guest and an interesting program. So we'll speak to you then. God bless.
You've been listening to Leo Bonomo, the host of The Voice of Spirit, live every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, guests, and host of The Voice of Spirit, or to book a private reading, please visit leo-bonomo.com. That's leo-bonomo.com. Your connection to the other side is just a phone call away. The Voice of Spirit.
It is amazing, is it not?
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51. Wait, that doesn't exist. This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.